Okay. Success.
Nice.
And this is why we wait. We got folks coming in.
Yay, welcome.
Okay, awesome. We will go ahead and get started, I think. Welcome everybody to Poets in Pajamas by Sundress Publication. This is going to be our 162nd episode of the series featuring the wonderful work of Sher Ting and Grace MacNair. If anyone needs a copy of the poems for accessibility purposes, please feel free to email us at poetsinpajamas@gmail.com. We can get you a copy of that right away. The way that this reading will work is we'll have two readings back to back and then a joint Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions for our poets, go ahead and bank them, save them for the end, and then you can ask yourself or throw it in the chat. We're also live on Facebook right now. And for the folks on Facebook, please feel free to join in with the Zoom link that should be posted under the Facebook event. Or you can ask questions there, and then we can pull the questions over and ask the poets for you. Without further ado, we'll start off with Sher Ting. Originally from the sunny island of Southeast Asia, Sher Ting is a Singaporean-Chinese poet currently residing in Australia. She is the 2021 Writeability Fellow with Writers Victoria and a 2021-2022 Pushcart and Best of the Net nominee with work published / forthcoming in Colorado Review, Pleiades, OSU's The Journal, The Pinch, Salamander, Rust and Moth, The Citron Review, and elsewhere. Her debut chapbook, Bodies of Separation, is forthcoming with Cathexis Northwest Press. And her second chapbook, The Long-Lasting Grief of Foxes, is forthcoming with Clash Books. She tweets at SHERTTT and writes at sherting.card with 2 R's.co. Sher Ting, whenever you're ready.
All right, so hi everyone, I'm Sher Ting. So I'll be reading a few poems from my second forthcoming chapbook, The Long-Lasting Grief of Foxes. So the first of which is O Duan Si Lian. So it's a poem about childhood as well as the legends that stay with us even from our fondest childhood memories. Okay, O Duan Si Lian. Oh love, what do you know about sacrifice when your skin is lighter than the sky? What do you know about holding a rabbit and shooting it between the eyes, of culling an accent and skinning it to its core? After the war, my grandfather still dreams of the mountains from his childhood, the red cormorant soaring with an olive branch within its beak. In every story, someone berates Chang'e for drinking the potion and ascending to the moon. But the last time someone shortened her name to Chen, she thought about the moon, how it made even half an existence look beautiful. Somewhere in the past, someone said Chang Shou Ge and thought of her. Why is it when the houses have collapsed all around us, we always remember most the song from our childhood? Oh love, tell me how much it hurts to be the boy with a bone in your throat, then multiply it by an existence. In the 70s, we slow danced with feather boas and washed out cheongsams. In the 80s, they announced they were closing the Getai, cleaning up the streets. We were always walking backwards into an ending. All around us, the mountains. They're aching. They're haunting, damning mountain sound. And the second poem is also from The Long-Lasting Grief of Foxes. So it's called Brain Theory. So this poem is also just reflects on my experiences living in Australia as someone from a different cultural background. In Chinese, we don't say contentment. We say 知足, to know when things are enough, to see every ending and still choose the same. The rabbit from my childhood sits in its cage, calculating every possibility. My grandfather crop circles his childhood dreams through the driver's seat of a cab. My grandma lets the white lady intercept her path on the plane and apologizes for existing. When someone hypothesizes where I'm from, I say China, though my distance from that country and this is uniform. This is the land of the free, but what of freedom? The mud skippers back home circle the lake, then up the mangrove trees. Here, the currents push back into history. Everything you wish it could be is on the other side of everything that is. The white man says something in Manglish and everyone laughs. The self-inflating Kung Fu joke and the isolation I can't comprehend. In a universe born of heated exchange, he says humor is only relative. We say 饮水思源, but half the origin stories are a villain growing into its skin. I've learned the natural order of things, the infinite universe and the finite probability of victimhood. In the legends, the rabbit seals its lips, forces itself into the cauldron as fodder for the lone huntsman. The people applaud through the bones of the cypress for the uncoupling of a body who has collided with the wolves and made peace with the fire. So my next poem will be Object Impermanence, also from the same chapbook, The Long-Lasting Grief of Foxes. Everything is a lesson in impermanence. Two yolks merging into a scallion sun, bouquets of bok choy peeling beneath the sink. 4,000 years ago, Li Bai wrote a letter home, found that ink takes 2 days to fade into watermark, even less to disappear without a scar. You said it's been a while since we've been to Yam Cha, and the shop around the corner has closed, but I've never liked that shop anyway. You've told me you've forgotten how to say the word that sounds a lot like, but not so much like love. And it's okay, we don't use it much anyway. But in all honesty, I never figured out the word you were referring to. Like the game of broken telephone we played when I was a child, I never understood what you meant to say. The hunger that never seemed to be about food. The bones riddled with exhaustion when sleep was never enough. I tell you about all the awards I've won, and you tell me, you know, 大姨, she's moving to Sydney. Sydney? 是的你. Ma, 大姨 has been gone for the last 10 years. Sometimes on the phone, 2,000 miles apart, I can almost believe the people we're pretending to be. The girl who claimed her miracle, the mother whose proof a miracle wouldn't last. You tell me you're okay, but you still listen to Kang Ting Tinker and talk about running with the horses, occasionally conjure a family from ghosts. And I realize through the rattle of the breeze, the sodium lights, my body flashed a lonely island in my mother's skin. Maybe none of us ever are. All right, so my next poem is from my first chapbook, Bodies of Separation. So it's titled Wound, and it also reflects on my experiences living in Australia. And the disconnect can feel from, I'm coming from a different cultural background. So, wound. This is the flag wound around my finger. The man across the table tells me to break my name in 3 places across the dotted lines. He tells me to hold my hand over my chest like a sinner rewriting a crime. Tells me to commit these clauses to memory like rivets through the hands. Somewhere across town, a man stands across the yard with a picket sign, yelling, "We don't sing songs about orphans here." The white sting of a blue sky and golden classic like napalm through the veins. Kesa. Or to hear the anthem of another gun against the temple of my people, the white rifle through the streets of Hong Kong. Hear the barrel open through the skull of a fallen soldier into a love profaned and deserted on the bed of an oriental princess. Against a sky shot through with desire, a man on the street ties a string around my wrist and asks me to buy my freedom. He tells me there is a price for everything. Bones line the tarmac between my country, this house, and the ocean. My mother tells me to avoid looking at the trees. But Ma, there are some things in this world far scarier than ghosts. I still hear the sound of my ancestral tablet breaking into 3. The wild thunder of my great-grandmother's voice rising like an anvil. Somewhere, a chord unravels like a foreign tongue. My mother's cry, like a stranger's kiss, follows me everywhere. So my next poem as well is from Bodies of Separation. It's titled Yellow Fever. C1, hope. C also, C1, to extinguish all hope, or C1, to look to the west. But what does it mean to be saved? You with your thumb on my jugular, learning the crest of my breath, telling me you were made for destruction. But tonight we'll build cities from the bones you've made. Tell me, blue-eyed lover, wisdom wielder from whom all answers were born. Why is it when someone says superhero, my mind only comes up white? How you mouth through and break the womb of another country to satisfy your desire. In the back of a faded green Camry, 5 past midnight on the dime of a gasoline, your grandfather once reached for the arms of another country and called it mercy. When she broke, all river, seed, and bloodied thread, he christened her indecent. Years later, he'd sit at the bar, dusting the napalm out of his hair, laughing about the one encounter he had with the mysterious woman from a land he couldn't pronounce. Oriental princess, China doll. The names of your fantasies sound like a sullied leaf. Rain phosphorescing backwards, falling through the eye into every good part, till it has renounced an ancestral wound. Our rabbits lie, moon-orphaned and unmarked in their graves. You press a thumbprint into my back, some victim of causality, to mark the hour I'd learned about all the other legends our grandmothers foretold. So then, what does it mean to be saved? I've had faith in dragons lesser than you. Okay, and this next poem is also from Bodies of Separation. It's titled Ke Wang, which also means to desire or to thirst or long for something. So every day, my mother calls and asks if I'm okay, when what she really means is, how's the weather? And I want to tell her it's 20 degrees and feels like something's about to die. Last weekend, someone broke into the local Asian grocers, wrote, "Go back to your country," in red block letters across the window. The owner arrived the next morning, swept up the glass shards, and reopened the store for the day. Last weekend, my friends and I watched Karate Kid, and they told me to raise my fists in a flying tiger dragon stance. They taunted, "Show us some kung fu, like come on, make yourself into something interesting." They said, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But why does our existence have to be a fight?" The sun rises with the pounding of pestle or mortar, bleeds what burns from the skins of peppercorn and star anise. My skin silvers from bare knuckling what has always been cold to touch. The corpses in another headline, the silence that follows when you say, "Asia is not as poor as you think it is." When my mother calls, I say that I'm okay, when what I really want to say is, "Ma, the sun is the same here as it is back in our country. When it rains, it's a flood even God ignores." Yesterday, someone called out, "These Chinese" on the street, and I began running. They said yellow, and I knew they meant jaundiced, not sun-spangled, not starry-eyed. I ran till all around me it was blue like the sky, and I wondered if enough ocean passes through me, will I become luminous too? Will I become a color that even I could die to love? And this last poem I'm reading is also from Bodies of Separation. It's titled "The Things We Call Beautiful." So it's based off this object called the Good Characters Chinese alphabet. So it's basically a set of alphabet where people use Chinese characters to represent English words, and in that way they transliterate an English name into Chinese characters. I guess it's a way of trying to get involved with the culture. So yeah, this is my reflection on that. So the things we call beautiful. When I was in 6th grade, my teacher told me to transliterate my name into Chinese characters. She tells me Chinese is a beautiful Orient language and how lucky I am to be Chinese. So I wrote, "Bao rises 3 feet, 7 labors inside giants. It means nothing to me. That day, I returned home and flushed my assignment down the toilet. How it choked, water spilling over the curve of porcelain. And I thought, should I have made a mess if only to be seen? My mother needs balm like cattle brand onto her wrist from the morning spent slicing fish gut. She shouts a Mandarin dialect across the market floor, like a soldier heading out for war. And my grandfather walks out in old cab accident with metal in his back. Every month, my mother brings me to the wishing tree and whispers my name 8 times for luck. I tell her my teacher doesn't know I was named for snow on the pavilion, powdered wisteria on slick grey beams. She tells me no one ever does. In animal chess, my grandma always chooses the red and sends it north of the river. When water spills over its ankles, everyone marvels at the exquisiteness of its survival. And she tells me how beautiful is the rat that consumes an elephant when the world is looking away. All right, thank you. Yeah, this is the end of my reading.
Thank you so much, Sher Ting. That was absolutely lovely. We will roll right into the next reading from here. So Grace, if you are ready. Grace MacNair is a poet, teacher, and healthcare professional, born and raised in North Carolina. She currently lives in Brooklyn, New York. She holds a BA from UNC Chapel Hill and an MFA from Hunter College. She has received residencies and fellowships from Ragdale, Marble House Project, Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, Monson Arts, and the Carolyn Moore Writers House, Bread Loaf Writers Conference, and the Bread Loaf Translators Conference. Grace was selected by Yona Harvey as the winner of Radar Poetry's 2021 Coniston Prize and by Safia Elhillo as the winner of the Palette Poetry's 2022 Emerging Poet Prize. Her poems have appeared or are forthcoming in the Threepenny Review, Radar Poetry, Palette Poetry, the Missouri Review, Frontier Poetry, Best New Poets 2022, 50 Poems from Emerging Writers, and elsewhere. Grace's micro-chapbook, Even As They Curse Us, is available from Bull City Press. Grace, whenever you're ready.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming. Sher Ting, that was so, what an amazing reading. And I have so many questions for you. Those poems were really, really fantastic. Thank you for waking up at 7 a.m. to read to us. Or, well, you probably woke up at like 6 or 5 or something. So thank you. All right. So the first poem I'm going to start with, can everybody hear me? Yeah. Is called I Can't Think, Argue, or Complain After Marina Svetaeva. I can't think, argue, or complain. I can't sleep. I have no longing for the sun, the moon, nor the sea, not even a ship. My palms against the garden wall try to absorb its heat and fail. I turn my back on the plants and their cooling green. I don't long for desire or desire longing. I care nothing for the past, present, or future. I don't delight in the morning. The trams ringing and running means nothing to me. I am nowhere. I live outside the date, outside the day. I erase my name, forget the century. Forgot to set my timer. Okay, the next poem and the poems following, I just want to give a trigger warning for people. They talk about medical assault and invasive procedures that might be difficult for some people to hear. So please step away if you need to. Abecedarian for those who claim birth control goes against nature. Angelica, ashwagandha, abstinence, remember purity rings? Alkanet, red-rooted, used by Edna St. Vincent Millay to induce abortion. Acai juice, spermicide in 16th century BC Egypt, beeswax discs, bone shards of black cats, bundling boards Puritans place between fully clothed unmarried lovers, bleach, beaver testicles rich in androgens still used by indigenous people in New Brunswick, crocodile dung, cedar rosin by suggestion of the Greek physician Aetios, cohosh, coat hangers, cotton root bark defiantly ingested by enslaved Africans, dilation and curettage, dung quai, Depo-Provera, diaphragms invented in Holland in 1882, electrocution, ergot, elephant feces mixed with water, flax soaked in menstrual blood, falling downstairs, ghee, palatia seeds and honey, gunpowder, hair anus hung round the neck, hypothermia, herb of grace, intrauterine device with copper or hormone-releasing coils, infanticide, implanon. John the 21st, Pope in 1276, supported contraception, advised a plaster of hemlock to the testicles. Jewish Queen of Persia Esther bathed in myrrh and abortifacient for a year before meeting the king. Knitting needles, kudzu-related plants are used in Thailand. Lead was ingested by people in China. Lysol douches in the 20th century, hundreds died. Lemon halves as cervical caps, Giacomo Casanova bragged about it. Liver of cat, leeches, lactational amenorrhea, mercury causing sterility, kidney failure, brain damage, death, magic, mossballs, mugwort, myrrh from Myrrha, the daughter of Cineras, who raped her until the gods turned her into a plant. Mifepristone and misoprostol. Male contraception, cheap, non-invasive, reversible. Invented in 1979, no drug company will trial it. And Duka people of New Guinea shaped leaves into chalices and inserted them vaginally. Opium, oiled paper discs stuck to the cervix, pomegranate seeds, maybe Persephone ate them on purpose. Papaya, pessaries of peppermint and sicklewort, pebbles, Plan B, paying a man $150 to beat your pregnant belly. Puerto Rican pill trials. The main funder asks for a cage of ovulating females. Pennyroyal, mentioned in Aristophanes' play Peace and Benjamin Franklin's The American Instructor. Pine, quinine suppository sold in London from 1885 to 1960. Queen Anne's lace still used in Watauga County, North Carolina. Rajasthani people use Queen Anne's lace seeds too. Rock salt soaked in oil, ruta graveolens of which Pliny the Elder wrote. Rubber cervical cap stamped with the word racial by Dr. Stope, a eugenicist. Seaweed, sponge soaked in spermicide, squirting cucumber from the Greek word ekbalion, abortion, favorite of Hippocrates and Linnaeus, sharpened stick, shooting yourself in the stomach, strychnine, suicide, Spanish pie, fly, pulverized, starvation, squatting over a pot of boiling onions, submersion in scalding water, St. Hildegard von Bingen, a medieval nun, prescribed abortifactants. Tubal ligation, turpentine, thuja, tear gas, turkey feathers, tansy, uterine removal by hysterectomy, vitamin C tablets in the 1970s. Some people experienced severe burns, Vitex, vasectomy, vinegar, vacuum aspiration, walking where a pregnant wolf has urinated thrice, weasel testicles, willow, wormwood, whale bones, waist binding in ancient Rome, New Zealand, and elsewhere. Xenophobic sterilization of Puerto Rican women without consent. Title X funds cut in 2019 from domestic and global clinics providing information on abortion. Yarrow, yam used by the Aztecs, from which Dr. Pincus would extract progesterone for the birth control pill. Xanthome, zygote implantation may have been prevented by silphium, a Libyan plant harvested into extinction. Okay. All right, so this next poem I wrote after going to the Met during the pandemic, and there was nobody around, and it was so strange and magical, but also very haunting to walk through the museum, through all of these cultures and artifacts of cultures that no longer existed, and to think, like, wow, like that's going to happen to us. Like there's going to be a point in history where we no longer exist in the way that we know. And someone, if the world survives, might walk through my society in this way. And it was really strange. And so I wrote this during the pandemic. The lower part of a marble-seated statue of Hygeia, who, unlike so many of the other statues, missing arms, legs, hands, and cocks, appears to have been sawed through at her iliac crests, the wing-like portion of the pelvis, the hips on which she could, if she had them, rest her hands. Were she not stone, the mess, the stench of her would be unbearable. I'm glad for her bloodless quiet, her mutilation so long past that the bright paint that once adorned her is visible only under a microscope. Edges that should be rough are smooth, as if she'd melted, consuming herself as candles do. I love the airy fullness of the museum in which she sits, the high-ceilinged rooms where light goes from bright to filtered to almost night. Here I'm nowhere and everywhere at once, surrounded by things that belong only to each other, belong outside of the time I marvel in. Hygeia's feet are missing. A serpent entwines her legs. Each scale is half the size of my palm. The snake's coil spills over her lap, climbing her phantom torso like a sun-hungry vine until it reaches its own headless end. Hygeia, the goddess of health, acquired a cult following after a plague killed 1/4 of the population, including Pericles, which cost Athens the Peloponnesian War. Hygeia, daughter of Asclepius, the god of medicine, sliced from his mortal mother's dead body. Hearing stories like these in a time like this, I think grief is the most sacred form of love. Yet to avoid it, to protect those I cherish, I do almost anything. People once traveled to Hygeia's temple in Pergamon, shaved their heads in offering, purged themselves in the temple of her father. Let snakes slither their bodies while they lay in the dark, drugged, hypnotized, praying for a vision or a cure. Some claim grief is a teacher, maybe, but only long after we're gone. All I know is here absence surrounds me like artifacts buried with the dead to teach them how to live again. To Hygeia's right sits an urn, translucent blue, once used as a water jug. The ashes glimmer with rainbows caught in the uneven mouth-blown glass, while one room over, beyond a funerary crown of gold oak leaves and acorns thin as paper, a pair of oversized eyes, crafted for a statue, lies suspended in a glass case. Despite pockmarks in the frit glazing the marble sclera and the quartz irises, the obsidian pupils meet my gaze. Time retreats, rushes forward. Among all the stone, glass, and gold, my body feels momentary, predictive, like air smells before snow falls. A smell that's as difficult to describe as Hygeia's missing face. In this city, suddenly missing so many faces. Those who died, those who are dying, even as I walk back through rooms filled with what grief teaches us about nations who rise under one God, only to fall under another. Behind me, the stone eyes, unblinking since the 5th century, stare down the next stranger. The half-severed serpent winds a little tighter around Hygeia's partial form. Grief becomes history, becomes the body I'm pushing through the museum's heavy bronze doors into the distant lament of sirens. Fifth Avenue is empty. The sky blues, then golds. The smell of snow breaks around me. I think my time is up. I think that's 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Grace. Two absolutely stunning readings. Thank you both. At this time, we'll transition into the Q&A portion of our meeting. So if y'all have any questions that have been stewing or you want to come up with some, feel free to turn on your camera, ask the poets yourself, or you can throw them in the little chat box that we have in Zoom and we can ask for you. Same goes for the folks on Facebook Live. SJ and I like to ask a kind of introductory question just to get the conversation going, because I feel like there's all like the deep questions, and that's great. But also, we're just curious, what are y'all reading? What, if anything, has kind of stuck out to you in your recent travels through literature or media? Sure Ting, if you would like to start, maybe.
All right, so for me, I've just been reading a lot of poems, I guess from Natalie Diaz. So one poem which I particularly liked, which I think is quite a famous poem of hers, is so Manhattan is a Lenape word. And I love how she draws upon a lot of imagery, a lot of things that are closer to home, and she draws them into her poems. And that's always what I've sought to do as well, to draw from my own personal experiences, and also and just like things which can bring bring a new perspective, I guess, to my culture, to my poems as well.
Sher Ting, that's so interesting that you say that about Natalie Diaz, because that was the poet that I was thinking about when you were reading. I was like, I wonder, your work resonated with that a lot. She's amazing. She's amazing. I'm reading Tomáš Salaman. He is a Slovenian poet who died in 2014. Some of his poems are very absurdist, and he's just really counter to my tendencies. And I'm really trying to read poets that push me in a direction that I feel like I couldn't go on my own. And so I'm really enjoying them. Something that's interesting about his work is some of the poems are really amazing and some of them are just bad. And I really like that, how uneven they can be. And I think that's wonderful. So I'm learning a lot from reading his work.
Awesome. Thank you both. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Also, Diaz is just such a incredible poet. That did not come to mind when Sher Ting was reading, but now that y'all have mentioned it, it definitely comes through Sher Ting. As far as other questions go, one that I had for both of y'all was the nature and the role of history in your work. I think both of your pieces that you would read had a lot going on with history, both personal and general. And I don't have any specific question when it comes to this, but more generally, how do you feel your work embodies history, or how do you like to call upon history to influence your work? Kind of like with a capital H, history. What does it mean to you to interface with that?
So actually for me, each poem, I seek to create each poem such that it's a time capsule that captures this moment in time, different moments of experiences which I've had. And I guess a lot of my poems also grapple with loss, like loss of certain cultural experiences, loss of language, the loss of understanding that occurs through translation. So each poem itself seeks to embody that, that particular moment in time, how one would feel going through that particular moment of loss. So yeah, so actually one of my poems, which was The Things We Call Beautiful. So that poem, I mean, reflects on my time living in Australia, but so it actually captures that part of my history in which I'm just grappling with identity, trying to make sense of who I am as an individual, even when living in a larger society with a myriad of experiences, cultures, differing opinions, and it just reflects on how much identity is possible, I guess, to be lost in translation sometimes, and how these shades and colors are kind of color your identity like gray wisteria. So all of this is like a reflection of a different point in my personal history. And so I guess when I read these poems back, I hope to be able to reflect on that time and how much I've moved past that or grown past that as well. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I thought maybe you had chosen us to read together because of our use of history. I was wondering that when I was listening to Sher Ting read. I'm really interested in history, I think, for two reasons. One, because I have a hard time writing. I truly do. And I'm a very slow writer. And when I do research, archival or otherwise, it is the way that I get myself to write. So it's partly for that reason. It's a generative process for me. And then secondly, the study of history is the study of the will to power. And I'm really interested in how power replicates itself and how it disintegrates. And history is sort of like a constant turning of that, right? And the meaning making that happens despite the will to power. And that dynamic is so interesting. And I think working in reproductive health, one cannot even stop for a moment or forget for a moment the power structures and the power dynamics that exist in the present and also historically. There is just no escape. It is so exhausting and so infuriating. And I have a lot of rage. And one of the ways that I make sense of that and can trace that trajectory is through research and history. And I wonder if there's a point in my life where I won't rely on history as much as I do now. But maybe there isn't. I don't know if I can answer that question. But yeah, it's very important to me.
Thank you both so much. Such beautiful answers. And I also like how it can both, on the one hand, like as you said, Grace, just be generative, like merely generative. But then on the other, there is the social, political power importance to, there's like, I need to write a poem. I want to write a poem. Also, everything, the entire history of how everything relates to itself. So yeah, thank you both. Do we have any other questions that folks have or want to ask?
I was going to ask Sher Ting the significance of history in your work, but you already mentioned that. But I wanted to ask you about the rabbits. I noticed that in the long-lasting grief of foxes, I think two of your poems from that manuscript mentioned rabbits. And I wanted to ask you more about them.
So for rabbits, I guess in my culture itself, I mean rabbits. Okay, they're part of like the 12 zodiacs. So rabbits itself is always this symbol of. I mean, they always talk of this animal of like vulnerability, of like peace loving in that sense, and just an animal which. I mean, I guess in the natural world would be considered a prey. So I guess in my poems, I was trying to bring a different perspective to rabbits as well, that beyond just being viewed as this like object of vulnerability, of like maybe a prey to a larger predator, that rabbits itself, there's this whole other side of resilience to them. And I think that's the point which I'm trying to push through my work as well, that even though even though there may be like obstacles, there may be certain differences, but in the end, there's this resilience through whichever circumstances you're in that shines through. Yeah.
Hi. This has been really great. I don't have so much exactly of a question, but more since these questions that have been asked are really on point and really address the breadth of both the works that you've both shared. It's really nice to hear a Singaporean read because it's really rare to get to hear that. And yeah, when I hear you read, I hear my cousin all the way in Singapore, and as someone that lives in the States, the way in which you use language to kind of bridge those connections, like with having lived in Australia, it's really just like nice to see that in the content, and the same with yours, Grace, as like with the medical background as a health professional, it's like really refreshing to hear like all the references to herbs and like how do you channel like anger about like the systems that be into like these like remedies as like a solve, but also like but I can hear the angst, and so like it's been really satisfying like hearing you both like emote the like melancholy, but also like the truth in your words. Thank you.
I have a question. It's sort of a craft question. I would love to hear about how your revision process works. Do you feel like a poem comes together in revision? Are you more of a, like the shape is there when you draft it at first, or is it like a really long rewriting process? Like what's, I guess, the tempo to how you write and revise? I'd be really curious.
I revise forever and ever. So I write slowly and revise a lot. That's my process. Recently, a few poems have been coming out with less need for revision, but that's pretty rare. So I think that for me, the real writing happens in revision, and I love revision. I'm excited by revision. The idea of having to create a new poem and pull it into the world is just terrifying. So I do a lot of revision.
that's the same for me as well. So, I mean, usually I'll just come up with a couple of lines, like, I guess wherever I am, if I suddenly get an inspiration, I'll just jot those lines down. And then usually it takes days sometimes for the other lines to come to me. And then from there, I'll just build the poem. But even then, to create that flow and that voice that's consistent throughout the poem, it takes a lot of rewriting, I feel. Yeah, and sometimes some poems just don't want to remain as one poem. They end up being multiple poems. So you just end up breaking them up. Yeah, and I'll just go with the flow.
That is lovely to hear. That is something I need to hear. Revision for me is brutal. I don't want to do it. I get it down. And I know like the very famous expression is just kill your darlings or whatever. But I just want to like soften it a little bit, like, oh, you look so cute over there, little poem. Thank you both for your lovely responses. If there are no more questions, this is your time right now. Then we will go ahead and end the reading. Thank you both so much for sharing your words, your testimony. It has been absolutely lovely hearing you read. Where can folks find your work and more about you?
My website, which I'll put in the chat, and Bowl City Press published my micro-chapbook. And if anyone is submitting places, you should submit to Bowl City Press. They're really great.
Yeah, you can also read more of my work at sherting.card.co, or I've just created a new website as well, sherting.com. And then, yeah, can access Northwest Press, my book, as well as cash books with my second chapbook. Yeah, thank you.
I put my website in wrong. It's actually gracemacnair.com. So anyway, there we go.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you both. This has been Poets in Pajamas 162. Please also keep up with us on Facebook, Poets in Pajamas. We also have a WordPress, Poets in Pajamas, where you can see all upcoming readings. And speaking of, on the 27th, August 27th, we'll have our 163rd reading featuring the work of Sarah Sarai and Milia Majakovic, which will be lovely. So please come on back for more poetry. Until next time, Sher Ting, Grace, thank you so much.
Thank you.